I stand at the departures terminal of JFK, watching my family's plane taxi away without me, again. My phone buzzes with a late text from my sister. Sorry, Ellie, Dad thought you were in the other car. I clutch my useless boarding pass, the plastic edges digging into my palm. Unlike last time, in my previous life when I broke down sobbing, I smile. The deja vu is almost comical. They've abandoned me at the airport for the family emergency trip to Grandma's bedside, just like before. Only now, I have foreknowledge, resources, and a plan. I tap my other phone, the one they don't know about, and text my pilot. James, prepare the citation. Same destination. Being reborn with my memories intact was disorienting, but moments like these make it worthwhile. 4 days earlier, my family gathered in our suburban home's living room to discuss Grandma's declining health. The familiar scene unfolded exactly as I remembered it. My sister, Vanessa, monopolizing the conversation, reminding everyone she was Grandma's favorite. She specifically asked for me to come right away, Vanessa said, twirling a strand of her perfect blonde hair. We have that special connection, you know. My father nodded along, his attention fixed on Vanessa, as if she were delivering prophecy instead of manipulation. His reading glasses slid down his nose as he patted her hand. Of course she did, sweetheart. Mother busied herself with travel arrangements on her laptop, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. Ellie, she said without looking up, would you be able to take a later flight? Seat availability is limited on the first one. The familiar sting of exclusion burned in my chest, but I smiled pleasantly. Whatever works best for everyone. The coffee's bitter aroma filled the room as I excused myself, fingers trembling against my mug. In my previous life, this was when I began desperately trying to prove my worth, offering to pack everyone's bags and arrange airport transportation. This time, I slipped away to my room to make a single phone call to my investment manager. Julian, it's time to liquidate the tech stocks and move forward with the property acquisition near Grandma's estate. Are you sure, Miss Ellis? The market timing isn't... I'm sure. I know exactly what's coming. I hung up and allowed myself a small smile. In my first life, I died at 29 without accomplishing anything meaningful, always putting my family's needs before my own. When I mysteriously awakened back in my 17-year-old body with all my memories intact, I promised myself things would be different. Vanessa enters my bedroom without knocking, a habit she's maintained since childhood. The door bangs against the wall as she strides in, heading straight for my closet. Hey, can I borrow your navy dress for the trip? She's already rifling through my hangers, not waiting for permission. You won't need anything nice anyway. You'll probably just stay at the house while we visit Grandma at the hospital. I smell her cloying perfume, the expensive one Dad bought her for no special occasion, before I notice her removing the dress from its hanger. The delicate fabric dangles from her fingers as if it's already hers. In my past life, I'd meekly agreed. I'd stood watching as she stuffed my carefully steamed dress into her already overflowing suitcase, then spent the trip in jeans while she received compliments on my clothes. Today, I calmly take the dress from her hands. I'll be needing it after all. Her eyes narrow with surprise, perfectly sculpted eyebrows arching upward. Since when do you stand up for yourself? She asks, laughing awkwardly. I provide no explanation, simply returning the dress to its place. For a moment, she stands frozen, unused to resistance from me. Whatever. It probably wouldn't fit me right anyway, she mutters, backing out of my room, confused by this new boundary. My phone chimes, a notification from my private banking app confirming my latest 7-figure acquisition. I quickly silence it and slide the phone under my pillow before Vanessa's curiosity draws her back. I find Dad in his wood-paneled study, the leather chair creaking as he reviews family finances. The familiar scene of him frowning over spreadsheets, whiskey glass sweating rings onto expense reports. The room smells of leather, wood polish, and the faint sourness of anxiety. He looks up, startled to see me in the doorway. I rarely entered his sanctuary in my previous life, too intimidated by his perpetual disappointment. Ellie, he says, removing his glasses. Good timing. I wanted to talk to you about the upcoming semester. I know what's coming. I've lived this moment before. College tuition is tight this year, he begins, the same rehearsed concern as before. With Vanessa's master's program and these unexpected trips to see Grandma? I wait silently, watching him shift uncomfortably under my steady gaze. I'm thinking you might need to defer a semester, he finally says, like responsible adults sometimes need to do. Your sister never complained when we asked her to make sacrifices. But she never actually made any, I think, but don't say. Instead, I look at the family photo on his desk, taken at Vanessa's graduation. I'm half cropped out, my smile strained, as I stand at the edge of the frame. I understand priorities, I say, voice steady. His relief is palpable, the tension in his shoulders relaxing as he assumes I've surrendered again. The setting sun casts shadows across golf trophies he won with his colleagues, the same colleagues he takes on business trips instead of me. That's my practical girl, he says, already turning back to his papers, dismissing me from his thoughts. Your mother and I always say you have such a good head on your shoulders, not emotional like your sister. Not worth investing in, is what he means. Dad, I say from the doorway, did you ever actually set up that education fund Grandma gave you money for? The one specifically for my college? His hand freezes mid-page turn. Why would you ask about that now? I smile, just curious about my financial future. The look of momentary panic on his face confirms what I already know. In the kitchen, Mother prepares dinner while simultaneously coordinating with her charity board on speakerphone. The familiar rhythm of her chopping vegetables barely masks her whispered side conversation when she thinks I've left the room. No, we'll have Ellie stay behind to watch the house, she says, voice lowered but still audible. The grandmother really wants to see Vanessa, and you know how flights are. So expensive for last-minute bookings for everyone. The knife's blade catches the kitchen light as she notices me standing in the doorway. She quickly pivots, ending her call with a hurried, I'll call you back. Ellie, I didn't see you there. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Would you mind setting the table? I move to the cabinet for plates, pretending I heard nothing. Of course. She resumes chopping, the steady thunk of the knife against the cutting board filling the silence between us. You know, she says casually, this might be a good weekend for you to catch up on studying while we're gone. The house will be so quiet. The herbs she's crushing release their sharp scent as I volunteer to help with dinner. As we work side by side, she mentions casually that Vanessa might need my support during this difficult family time. She's always been so sensitive about Grandma, Mother says, wiping her hands on her apron. They have such a special bond. The irony burns as I recall how, in my past life, I was the one hospitalized for anxiety after being abandoned at the airport, while Vanessa enjoyed Grandma's inheritance discussion. My sister had texted me selfies from Grandma's garden, complaining about being stuck with old people all weekend. While I was sedated in a hospital bed, my panic attack dismissed as typical Ellie dramatics. I'm sure she'll manage, I say, carefully arranging silverware on the table. Vanessa's always been so strong. Mother beams at the compliment to her favorite daughter. That's true, but still, family supports family. Yes, I agree, my voice gentle. I've always believed that. What she doesn't know is how differently I now define family, and that her definition has failed its last test. Standing in the bustling terminal, announcements echoing overhead, I watch their plane depart. The massive jet lifts from the runway, carrying my so-called family to Grandma's estate without a second thought for the daughter they've left behind. And in my previous life, this moment broke me. I remember collapsing into a plastic airport chair, sobbing so hard a concerned stranger called medical assistance. I remember the humiliation of trying to explain between gasping breaths that my family had simply forgotten me. The disbelief on the paramedics' face as they checked my vitals and suggested I might be having a breakdown unrelated to the circumstances. But today, instead of panic, I feel liberation. I text James to ready my private jet, purchased through shell companies after my rebirth, and walk calmly toward the executive terminal on the other side of the airport. My heels click confidently against the floor as I leave behind the crowded commercial spaces for the hushed exclusivity of private aviation. The scent of stale airport coffee is replaced by the fresh-cut flowers and leather of the private lounge. The receptionist greets me by name. Good morning, Miss Ellis. Your plane will be ready for boarding in 15 minutes. May I get you anything while you wait? My phone buzzes incessantly with belated apologies from my family. Mom, Ellie, we're so sorry. Just realized you weren't on the plane. Dad, Miscommunication on our part. Can you get an Uber to the main terminal and book yourself on the next flight? Save the receipts. Vanessa, OMG, they forgot you again? Classic. I respond with a simple, no worries, I'll figure something out. What they don't know, I've already figured everything out, including accessing the trust fund Grandma secretly established for me years ago, the one my father managed into his own accounts in my previous life. As I sip sparkling water in the quiet lounge, waiting for my private plane, I think about how differently things will unfold this time around. I time my arrival perfectly, instructing my driver to pull up to Grandma's estate just as my family settles in. The black town car crunches over the gravel driveway, the sound announcing my presence before they can see me through the windows. The sprawling Victorian mansion looks exactly as I remember it, pale yellow clapboard with white trim, wraparound porch dotted with wicker furniture, meticulously maintained gardens stretching in every direction. In my previous life, I arrived here a day late, exhausted from booking my own economy flight and taking 3 buses from the airport. By then, they'd already established their routines and territories, leaving me the small guest room above the garage. This time, I step out of the luxury car wearing my navy dress, the one Vanessa wanted to borrow, and oversized sunglasses that belonged to my grandmother in her youth. The driver retrieves my designer weekend bag from the trunk and places it beside me with a respectful nod. The front door swings open as I approach the steps. Vanessa freezes in the doorway, her expression shifting from shocked to confused to calculating in rapid succession. Ellie? She steps onto the porch. How did you... Before she can finish, our parents appear behind her, their faces mirrors of astonishment. How did you get here? Father demands, his voice carrying across the garden. I smile, ascending the steps with unhurried grace. A kind friend with connections helped me after you left. I keep my explanation deliberately vague. I couldn't miss seeing Grandma, could I? The grandfather clock in the hallway ticks loudly in the silence as they absorb my unexpected appearance. Vanessa's eyes narrow suspiciously while Mother suddenly becomes overly solicitous. You must be exhausted, dear. Let me make you some tea, she offers, her hospitality performative now that Grandma might be watching. I accept graciously, stepping past them into the foyer where I catch Grandma's knowing gaze from her armchair by the window. Sunlight illuminates her face, highlighting the shrewd intelligence that age hasn't diminished. She always saw through the family dynamics, and now she sees something new in me. Elizabeth, she calls, using my full name as she always has. Come sit with me while they fetch your tea. As I join her, I notice my parents exchanging nervous glances. In their script, I wasn't supposed to arrive at all, or if I did, I was supposed to be a day late, properly chastened by their abandonment, and grateful for any scraps of inclusion they might offer. You look different, Grandma observes quietly, her fragile hand finding mine. Do I? I ask, squeezing her fingers gently. Yes, she says, her eyes sharp despite her weakened body. You look like me. In Grandma's study, wood-paneled and smelling of old books and lemon polish, I volunteer to help her organize some paperwork. The rest of the family is occupied with bringing up more luggage and claiming the best guest rooms. Grandma dismisses her nurse with a wave, waiting until the door closes behind the woman. You've changed, she whispers once we're alone. I can see the blue veins visible on her fragile hand as it covers mine. I say nothing, simply meeting her gaze steadily. In my previous life, I was too timid to ever be alone with her, too afraid of saying the wrong thing or being judged unworthy. I wasted the precious little time we had left. Something's different about you, she continues. You remind me of myself at your age, before I let your grandfather's family dictate my choices. I confess nothing but recognize her perception. She was always more observant than anyone gave her credit for. I'm updating my will, she says abruptly, gesturing to the leather portfolio on her desk. And I have questions about your education and future plans. My education? I repeat, knowing exactly where this conversation is headed. Yes. The fund I established for you when you were born. Your father tells me you've been accessing it. In my prior life, this fund remained a mystery to me until after her death, by which time my father had drained it completely. I haven't touched any fund, I say truthfully, but I'd be interested to know more about it. Her eyes narrow slightly. He said, The hushed conversation is interrupted when Vanessa bursts in without knocking, her eyes darting between us suspiciously. There you are, she says breathlessly. Mom's looking everywhere for you, Grandma. The doctor's on the phone. Through the study window, storm clouds gather on the horizon, matching the tension that has entered the room. Grandma gives me a significant look that says our conversation isn't over. Later that evening, after dinner, Father corners me in the hallway outside my bedroom. Unlike my previous life when I was relegated to the garage apartment, this time I've claimed the blue room, Grandma's favorite guest suite that Vanessa normally takes. I notice you've been spending quite a bit of time with your grandmother, he says, attempting casual conversation while blocking my path to my door. Just making the most of our visit, I reply with a pleasant smile. And this sudden interest in her affairs? His voice hardens slightly. I simply want quality time with her, I say, leaving unsaid that in my previous life, this visit preceded her passing by 3 months. Time I'd squandered trying to please everyone else while they kept me away from her. Father's eyes narrow. Just be careful what you discuss with her. She's easily confused these days. The lie hangs between us. Grandma's mind is as sharp as ever. It's her body that's failing. We both know it, but only one of us has reason to fear her mental clarity. Good night, Dad, I say, slipping past him into my room. I'm sure we'll all sleep better knowing Grandma is surrounded by family who care about her best interests. The emphasis on best interests isn't lost on him. As I close my door, I glimpse the uncertainty creeping across his face. While the family enjoys breakfast on the terrace, birdsong mingling with clinked china, I excuse myself for a school-related call. Mother nods distractedly, more concerned with serving Vanessa her preferred type of jam than questioning my absence. In the privacy of Grandma's study, I contact her bank manager, whom I've already met twice since my rebirth, confirming the paperwork we've quietly prepared. Good morning, Miss Ellis. Mr. Richardson's voice is professionally warm. I have the documents ready as requested. Will today work for the signatures? Yes, I confirm. My grandmother is expecting you at 11. The family will be visiting the garden then. Excellent. He pauses. I should mention that your father has made several inquiries about your grandmother's accounts recently. Rather persistent inquiries. I'm not surprised. In my previous life, this visit coincided with my father taking control of Grandma's finances to protect her from scammers, a protection that somehow resulted in several large transfers to his business accounts before her death. Thank you for letting me know. I'll make sure you have private time with her. Through the window, I watch my family laugh together on the terrace, excluding me even in my absence. Father gestures animatedly, likely embellishing some story about his business prowess, while Mother gazes at him adoringly and Vanessa taps away on her phone. A text from Vanessa appears. What are you really doing here? I delete it without responding and return to the terrace, where a server is refilling porcelain cups with jasmine tea, steam rising delicately into the morning air. I was thinking, I announce as I take my seat, we should all visit Grandma's favorite garden spot today. The roses are in bloom, and she mentioned wanting to see them. That's actually thoughtful, Ellie, Vanessa says with surprise, as if basic consideration is beyond my capabilities. What a lovely idea, Mother agrees, clearly relieved I'm not causing problems. Father checks his watch. Perhaps after lunch, I have some calls to make this morning. Grandma suggested 11, I say firmly. The light is best then, and she tires in the afternoon. I don't mention that 11 is when Mr. Richardson will arrive discreetly with documents requiring Grandma's signature. Documents that will freeze my father's access to her accounts pending routine verification, a process I know from experience will reveal his unauthorized transfers and questionable management. 11 it is, Father agrees reluctantly, unaware that his financial manipulations are about to be discovered. As I sip my tea, I catch Grandma watching me from her window above, a slight smile playing at the corner of her mouth. For the first time, I feel like someone in this family truly sees me. 2 weeks after returning home from Grandma's, Mother announces another urgent family meeting in our living room. The evening air feels heavy with unspoken tension, ceiling fans spinning lazily overhead. We gather on the uncomfortable formal furniture reserved for important discussions. the kind that usually end with me making sacrifices. We need to discuss a financial situation, Father begins, pacing in front of the fireplace. His shirt sleeves are rolled up, tie loosened, his visual shorthand for stress. They've discovered the financial freeze. It was only a matter of time before Grandma's bank contacted him about the audit. There seem to be some banking irregularities with Grandma's accounts, he continues, careful not to look directly at me. Temporary, I'm sure, but it means we need to make some adjustments. Mother perches on the edge of the sofa, her posture rigid. We've had to postpone some important investment opportunities, she adds, picking up his thread seamlessly. They've clearly rehearsed this conversation. Vanessa examines her manicure with feigned disinterest, but I catch the worried glance she shoots Father. The thing is, Mother continues, her voice taking on the gentle tone she uses when delivering bad news to me specifically, we think it would be best if you withdraw from college this semester to help the family through this rough patch. Vanessa shoots me a triumphant look from behind our parents' backs. In my previous life, I'd capitulated immediately. I'd sacrificed my education and drained my savings to help them, only to discover later they'd used the money for Vanessa's European summer program, disguised as an educational opportunity Dad had earned through business connections. I nod thoughtfully, watching the relief spread across their faces at my apparent compliance. I'll see what I can do, I promise vaguely, while beneath the coffee table my fingers send a pre-composed email to Grandma's lawyer detailing this exact conversation. Father's shoulders relax visibly. That's my practical girl. If only he knew how practical I've become. The next day, I casually mention receiving an unexpected internship offer at a prestigious firm during dinner. The announcement lands like a stone in still water, creating visible ripples of disruption around our dining table. An internship? Mother repeats, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth. What firm? Ellis Venture Capital, I reply, naming the company I established months ago with my reborn knowledge of future market trends. They specialize in early technology investments. Father frowns. I've never heard of them. They're relatively new but growing quickly, I explain, taking a sip of water to hide my smile. The position starts next week. Next week? Mother's voice rises slightly. But that conflicts with our family bonding trip. The hastily planned trip is their transparent attempt to approach Grandma again about finances, a strategy I remember from before. Thunder rumbles outside as Father sets down his utensils with deliberate care. Ellie, family comes first, especially during difficult times. You know that. Mother nods in agreement. This internship opportunity shows a certain selfishness during family difficulties. The accusation hangs in the air between us. In my previous life, these words would have devastated me, sent me spiraling into guilt and compliance. Vanessa openly scoffs from across the table. What qualifications do you even have for venture capital? You've barely finished a year of college. The sharp scent of rain wafts through open windows as I quietly stand my ground. I've already accepted the position. The three of them exchange glances, momentarily united in their surprise at my defiance. Since when do you make decisions without consulting us? Father demands. Since I turned 18, I reply simply. The position is paid and includes credit toward my business degree. It's an opportunity I can't refuse. What I don't tell them, the firm is actually mine, established with a portion of the funds I quietly reclaimed from the trust Grandma set up for me. Funds my father had been siphoning away for years. Their faces flash with unmasked anger at this small rebellion, a rare moment of honesty in our family dynamic. For once, they're not pretending to have my best interests at heart. We'll discuss this later, Father says tightly, effectively ending the conversation but not the conflict. As thunder crashes closer to the house, I notice Mother typing rapidly on her phone beneath the table, no doubt messaging my father about how to handle this unexpected resistance. Father bursts into my room without knocking the next morning, his face flushed with anger. The door bangs against the wall as he storms in, waving papers in his hand. What are these? He demands, thrusting bank statements in front of my face. I recognize them immediately. Notices from Grandma's bank about the education fund he'd been managing. In my previous life, I never saw these documents until after both Grandma and I were dead. I remain seated at my desk, maintaining a calm exterior despite my racing heart. They appear to be bank statements. Don't play dumb, he snaps. Have you been talking to your grandmother's financial advisors? The accusation hangs in the air between us. I can smell his stress sweat mixing with expensive cologne as he looms over me, waiting for an explanation. Why would I do that? I ask innocently. These funds, he jabs at the papers. Your grandmother's estate is reclaiming them. They're saying they were only to be used for your education. Were they? I keep my voice neutral, curious to see how he'll justify himself. This was meant for both you girls, he claims, though in my previous life I never saw a penny. I've been managing these investments for the benefit of the whole family. My heart pounds as I maintain innocence, suggesting perhaps the bank discovered irregularities during their standard audit. Banks are so particular about designated funds these days. Behind him, Vanessa appears in the doorway, eyes narrowed with dawning suspicion. She's wearing my cashmere sweater without permission, a small theft that once would have bothered me but now seems trivial compared to what they've stolen from my future. What's going on? She asks, gaze darting between us and the papers in Father's hand. A notification chimes on my second phone, which I quickly silence. An alert that the family vacation home in the Catskills has just been privately listed for sale without their knowledge. Another property Grandma owned that they've been treating as their own. Nothing that concerns you, Father tells Vanessa, but his voice lacks conviction. He turns back to me. This conversation isn't over. But it is. He just doesn't know it yet. At a neighborhood gathering that weekend, garden lights twinkle as evening falls. Mother has insisted we all attend to maintain appearances. The Ellises stand together during challenging times, she reminded us during the car ride over. I mingle separately from my family, observing from a distance as Mother urgently damage controls rumors about our family's financial situation. Mrs. Abernathy from the garden club had apparently inquired about why we've listed our vacation home. Just a misunderstanding with the property manager, Mother explains smoothly, but the tension in her smile is visible even from where I stand. The ice in drinks clinks like tiny alarms as neighbors exchange glances. Our community thrives on gossip, particularly regarding downfalls of the seemingly successful. When introduced to Mother's charity board friends, I innocently mention the foundation that's considering my proposal. The same organization that, following an anonymous tip, is now auditing Mother's committee for financial discrepancies. The Youth Education Fund? Mrs. Richardson clarifies, interest piqued. They're very selective about their partnerships. Yes, they're reviewing my proposal for a community project supporting underprivileged students, I explain. Students like I would have been after they sabotaged my education in my previous life. The scent of grilled food mingles with expensive perfume as Mother appears beside me, gripping my arm too tightly, smile fixed. What proposal? She asks through clenched teeth. Just something I've been working on, I reply vaguely. Did you know the fund is conducting a full audit of all their community partners? They're very thorough about financial transparency. Mother's face pales slightly. In my previous life, I discovered after her death that she'd been skimming from charity donations for years to supplement her shopping habits. Always careful to take small enough amounts that the discrepancies could be attributed to accounting errors. How interesting, she manages. Ellie, I think your father needs help with the drinks. As she steers me away, her nails digging into my arm, I catch the curious glances of her board friends. The seed has been planted. Within days, Mother will be removed from the board pending investigation, just as happened before, but this time much earlier and with my subtle guidance. My family stages an intervention Sunday afternoon, positioning themselves strategically around our living room. Mother and Father occupy the sofa, a united front, while Vanessa perches on the armchair beside them. I'm directed to the uncomfortable ottoman across from them, physically lower, isolated, outnumbered. Afternoon shadows stretch across the floor as Father clears his throat to begin the rehearsed speech. Ellie, we're concerned about your recent behavior, he starts, hands clasped between his knees in a pose of fatherly concern. This sudden, secretive behavior, these independent decisions without family consultation, it's not like you. Not like the old you, Vanessa interjects, unable to resist the jab. Mother shoots her a warning glance before turning to me with practiced empathy. Sweetheart, we're worried you're abandoning our family values. The Ellis family has always operated as a unit, making decisions together. The familiar strategy, ganging up to reinforce compliance, feels almost nostalgic. In my previous life, these family meetings inevitably ended with me in tears, apologizing for imagined transgressions against family harmony. Your internship, your sudden interest in Grandma's finances, these proposals you're working on without telling us. Father lists my apparent sins, while Mother dabs at non-existent tears. We've always supported you, she claims, conveniently forgetting the college semesters I lost, the opportunities diverted to Vanessa, the systematic undermining of any independence I attempted. Vanessa scrolls through her phone, occasionally looking up to add criticism. Plus, you've been weird ever since we got back from Grandma's. Like you think you're better than us or something. The central air conditioning hums as I listen patiently to each accusation, each manipulation, each attempt to reassert control over me. When they finally run out of rehearsed points, an expectant silence falls over the room. They're waiting for my usual capitulation, the tearful apology, the promises to do better, to be the daughter they want rather than the person I am. Are you finished? I ask quietly. The question catches them off guard. Father blinks rapidly while Mother's mouth opens slightly in surprise. Because I have an internship call in 15 minutes, I continue, standing up from the ottoman. Thank you for sharing your concerns. Their stunned silence follows me upstairs. Through my bedroom window, I watch a moving truck discreetly parking at our neighbor's house, the house I've just purchased through my company as the first step in acquiring our entire block for redevelopment. In my previous life, our neighborhood was demolished for luxury condominiums 2 years after my death, the property values tripling overnight. This time, my family won't benefit from the windfall, but I will. The call comes at dawn, birds just beginning their chorus outside my window. My private phone, the one my family doesn't know about, vibrates against my nightstand. Miss Ellis? The nurse's voice is gentle but direct. Your grandmother passed peacefully in her sleep about an hour ago. She had no pain. Grief tightens my throat despite my preparation for this moment. In both lives, I loved her truly. Perhaps the only person in my family I could say that about with certainty. Thank you for calling me first, I managed to say. Of course, you're listed as her emergency contact. Unlike last time when they delayed telling me until after the funeral arrangements were made, I am the first to know. In my previous life, I learned of Grandma's death through a group text from Vanessa, sent 2 days after the fact, when they'd already selected her casket and planned a service I couldn't attend due to limited seating. The morning light casts long shadows across my room as I process my grief differently this time, having made the most of our remaining time together. Our weekly private calls, the documents we reviewed together, the truths we finally shared, all precious memories I didn't have before. I dress with deliberate care and cross the hallway to my parents' bedroom. Father answers my knock in his bathrobe, irritation at the early disturbance evident until he sees my face. It's Grandma, I say simply. She's gone. The news ripples through our household like a stone dropped in still water. Mother emerges from the bathroom in her silk robe, face half made up, while Vanessa stumbles bleary-eyed from her room, clutching her phone. How do you know? Father demands, suspicious even in grief. The nurse called me, I reply calmly. Why would they call you first? Mother asks, her voice sharp despite her attempt at a sorrowful expression. I don't answer directly. We should go to the estate today. There are arrangements to be made. At the funeral home that afternoon, the shock on my family's faces isn't just about Grandma's passing, but that I was notified first. A break in the hierarchy they've established? The director addresses all questions to me while my family stands confused in their peripheral status. As Miss Eleanor specified in her pre-arrangements, the funeral director explains, gesturing to the paperwork before us, she preferred a simple service with wildflowers rather than formal arrangements. Father attempts to interject. We were thinking something more elaborate would be appropriate for Mother's status in the community. I believe we should respect Grandma's wishes, I counter softly but firmly. The rich scent of funeral lilies fills the consultation room as we discuss arrangements. Arrangements I've been authorized to make through documents they know nothing about. Grandma and I had reviewed her final wishes during one of our private conversations after my rebirth. She had updated her paperwork accordingly, naming me as her executor, a detail my family is about to discover. I don't understand, Mother whispers to Father. Why is Ellie making these decisions? The funeral director overhears and glances at his paperwork. Miss Ellis is listed as the executor of her grandmother's estate, he explains matter-of-factly. All arrangements are to be approved by her. The silence that follows is deafening. In my first life, I wasn't even invited to help choose the flowers. The lawyer's office features uncomfortable leather chairs and the faint smell of lemon furniture polish. My family sits expectantly as Mr. Edwards adjusts his glasses, documents spread before him on the mahogany desk. Father maintains a somber expression, though I notice how his eyes keep darting to the paperwork, trying to read it upside down. Thank you all for coming, Mr. Edwards begins formally. I'll now read the last will and testament of Eleanor Catherine Montgomery Ellis. The standard legal preamble seems to stretch Father's patience. He shifts in his seat, finger tapping against his knee, a nervous habit I've observed countless times before bad financial news. The surprise is evident when Mr. Edwards announces, "To my granddaughter, Elizabeth Ann Ellis, I leave my primary estate, all financial holdings, and controlling interest in Montgomery Investments." Father's face flushes crimson as he interrupts, rising half out of his chair. There must be some mistake. My mother discussed her intentions with me extensively. There's no mistake, Mr. Edwards replies calmly. Mrs. Montgomery Ellis updated her will 3 months ago, of sound mind and with multiple witnesses present. This is obviously manipulation, Father insists, gesturing toward me without looking in my direction. My daughter has no experience managing assets of this magnitude. My mother would never— Your mother did, Mr. Edwards cuts him off, removing his glasses. And she specifically instructed me to inform you that this decision was made with full awareness of how her previous arrangements were being managed. Mother's composure cracks as Mr. Edwards continues reading. She learns the family home, technically owned by Grandma but generously lent to them, now belongs to me as well. This can't be legal, she protests weakly. I assure you it is entirely legal, Mr. Edwards responds. Mrs. Montgomery Ellis was extensively evaluated for competency before these changes were made. Vanessa's shocked whisper carries clearly in the tense silence. This can't be happening. Outside the window, a gentle rain begins, matching the tears I don't shed. The inheritance is substantial, far more than I remembered from my previous life, when most of it had mysteriously diminished before being distributed through Father's management. As Mr. Edwards concludes the reading, Father attempts one last protest. My daughter is barely 20. She can't possibly manage these assets without proper guidance. Mrs. Montgomery Ellis anticipated your concern, Mr. Edwards replies smoothly. The assets will be managed by Montgomery Trust with quarterly oversight. Elizabeth has already met with the trustees. It's the final blow. Father sinks back into his chair, defeated by his mother's posthumous checkmate. In the midst of family chaos following the will reading, my phone rings with an urgent call requiring my presence at my downtown office, an office they didn't know existed. After several attempts to dismiss them, I reluctantly agreed to let my family accompany me, if only to end their increasingly desperate demands for explanation. The sleek black company car arrives promptly, the driver opening doors with practiced efficiency. My family crowds into the vehicle, their questions coming rapid fire, as we navigate through midday traffic toward the financial district. What office? Father demands for the third time. You'll see, is all I offer. The elevator ascends smoothly to the 30th floor, carrying my confused family, who insisted on accompanying me after I mentioned it concerned Grandma's business interests. The brushed steel doors slide open to reveal a modern space with Montgomery Ellis Ventures prominently displayed on the reception wall, and beneath it, my name as CEO. Welcome back, Miss Ellis, the receptionist greets me professionally. The Tokyo team is on standby for your call, and Mr. Nakamura sent over the revised projections. My family stands frozen in disbelief as I accept a tablet from my assistant, reviewing the morning's reports with practiced ease. The panoramic windows showcase the city skyline as my assistant hands me reports requiring immediate attention. How long has this been happening? Mother asks faintly, sinking into one of the reception area's sleek chairs. About a year, I reply casually, signing off on a document my assistant presents. My family slowly recognizes faces in the office photos displayed along the hallway, Grandma's former business associates now reporting to me. Executives who once barely acknowledged my existence now nod respectfully as they pass. These are Mother's people, Father says, bewildered. Henderson was her CFO for 15 years. And now he works with me, I confirm, leading them into my corner office with its commanding view of the city. The space is deliberately designed to project authority. Minimalist furnishings and rich materials, abstract art selected for its investment value rather than aesthetics, awards and credentials displayed with subtle prominence. Father approaches a framed photo on my credenza, Grandma and me at what appears to be a board meeting, both of us smiling at the camera. The date stamp shows it was taken 6 months ago. I don't understand, he says, voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. The scent of fresh coffee permeates the conference room adjacent to my office where I direct my family to sit. My assistant brings in a tray of refreshments before discreetly withdrawing. For the past year, I explain, taking the seat at the head of the table, I've been running the second company Grandma established, the far more successful one she kept separate from your management. Father flinches visibly at the implied criticism. She wanted someone with actual financial acumen, I continue, watching their expressions shift from shock to calculation. Someone who wouldn't use company funds to cover personal expenses or divert investments to failing side ventures. The accusation hangs in the air, undeniable but unacknowledged. But you're still in college, Vanessa protests, desperately clinging to her understanding of our family hierarchy. You don't know anything about business. I've completed my MBA, I reply calmly, enjoying their collective intake of breath. Online courses, accelerated program. Grandma was quite supportive. The revelation of my secret life, of abilities and accomplishments they never bothered to notice, settles over the room like a heavy blanket. For the first time, they're seeing me as I truly am, not as the convenient supporting character they created in their family narrative. Back at home, tension crackles between us like static electricity. We've barely spoken since the office revelation, each retreating to process this fundamental shift in our reality. But Father's patience breaks first, as I knew it would. He corners me in the kitchen as I prepare evening tea, his forced calm betrayed by the whiteness of his knuckles as he grips the counter. I think it's time you explained exactly what's been going on, he demands, voice low but intense. How long have you been plotting behind our backs? The chandelier light reflects in his angry eyes as I calmly pour hot water over my tea leaves, taking my time to respond. Plotting? Is that what you call it when I take an interest in my own future? I stir my tea slowly, deliberately. I suppose that's more comfortable than acknowledging I simply followed the money trail. What money trail? He asks, but his eyes shift away from mine. He knows exactly what I mean. I set down my spoon and face him directly, revealing knowledge I shouldn't have. Details of how he systematically diverted my education funds to cover his investment losses and Vanessa's expenses. The trust fund Grandma established for me when I was born, I say evenly. The same one you emptied to pay for Vanessa's semester in Paris and your failed restaurant investment. Mother gasps from the doorway where she's been eavesdropping. She steps into the kitchen, hand pressed to her throat. You couldn't possibly know about those things. But I do, I reply, retrieving a folder from my bag on the counter. I know about the forged signatures on withdrawal authorizations. I know about the sudden administrative fees that appeared after you became trustee. I know about the investments that supposedly failed, but actually paid returns directly to your personal account. The house creaks in the evening silence as I explain that Grandma appointed financial guardians to protect my interests, given the family history of fund mismanagement. Vanessa's coffee cup clatters against its saucer when I mention having copies of the forged documents they used to access my accounts. She's been silently observing from the breakfast nook, but now she stands, face pale. Dad wouldn't do that, she insists, but her voice lacks conviction. She's not a good liar, never had to be when others lied for her. I simply slide the documents across the counter. Copies of transfers, authorizations bearing Father's counterfeit of Grandma's signature, bank statements showing the systematic emptying of my trust while Vanessa's remained untouched. The trust has been reconstituted, I inform them calmly. With interest. Grandma was quite thorough once she understood what had happened. Father's breathing becomes more labored as the full implications sink in. This isn't just about inheritance or control. It's about potential legal consequences. Fraud, embezzlement, crimes that carry real penalties. Outside, car headlights briefly illuminate the room as a security vehicle patrols the perimeter of the property, the first sign of the private security service I've contracted since Grandma's passing. What are you planning to do? Mother asks, voice barely above a whisper. I take a sip of my tea before answering. That depends entirely on what you do next. A video call interrupts our tense family dinner the following evening. We've been eating in uncomfortable silence, crystal glasses reflecting candlelight, the weight of revelations and unspoken fears making conversation impossible. My phone chimes with a specialized ringtone. I glance at the screen and stand immediately. I need to take this, I announce, moving toward Father's study, my study now. I leave the door deliberately ajar as I accept the video call, the screen illuminating with the face of a middle-aged Asian man in an impeccable suit. Miss Ellis, good evening, he greets me in Mandarin. I apologize for interrupting your dinner. Not at all, Mr. Zhang, I reply fluently in the same language. I was expecting your call. Have the documents been approved? Their conversation continues for several minutes about expanding technology investments in emerging markets, profit projections, and regulatory approvals in multiple Asian countries. I know my family has gathered just outside the door, straining to understand. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 9 times as I return to the table, explaining I need to leave for Shanghai next week. You speak Chinese? Mother asks incredulously, the scent of her wine sharp in the air between us. Mandarin, I correct gently, and yes, I've been fluent for some time now. Vanessa's fork scrapes unpleasantly against fine china as she mutters about my hidden talents. There's a lot you don't know about me, I acknowledge, returning to my barely touched dinner. I pursued international education privately while you thought I was just studying at the library. Education funded by early investments I made with knowledge from my rebirth. I don't actually say that last part aloud, of course. Some secrets must remain mine alone. What investments? Father asks, unable to contain his curiosity despite his resentment. Finance has always been his weakness, both his passion and his downfall. As if on cue, my phone continuously chimes with international banking alerts, each representing transactions larger than what they've seen in a lifetime. I casually silence it without checking the notifications. Primarily technology and sustainable energy, I reply vaguely. Mr. Zhang oversees our Asian portfolio. Our? Mother questions. Montgomery Ellis Ventures, I clarify. The company I showed you yesterday. Father's breathing becomes more labored as he realizes the extent of what's happened beyond his control. The revelation of my global business network and influence becomes undeniable. How long have you been planning this? He finally asks, voice hoarse with suppressed emotion. I meet his gaze steadily. Long enough. Father calls an emergency family meeting in his study 3 days later. The request comes via a formally worded email rather than his usual barked commands, the first acknowledgement of our changed power dynamic. I arrive precisely at the scheduled time to find them already assembled. Late afternoon sun slants through half-closed blinds, dust motes dancing in the beams. Father sits behind his desk, technically my desk in my house now, hands clasped before him in a posture I recognize from his business negotiations. The leather of his chair creaks as he forces humility into his posture. I notice a prosperity gospel book conspicuously displayed on the desk, his latest investment opportunity when all else fails. Mother sits beside him in the visitor's chair, jewelry noticeably absent, since learning most of it must be returned to the estate. Her simple cotton dress is a far cry from her usual designer attire, a calculated visual reminder of their reduced circumstances. Vanessa stands by the window, arms crossed defensively. Her expression alternates between resentment and calculation as she watches me take the remaining seat. The air smells of Father's stress sweat and Mother's signature perfume, the expensive bottle I gifted her last Christmas that she claimed was just a knockoff while thanking me with condescending pats on the cheek. Elizabeth, Father begins formally, using my full name to signal the seriousness of the occasion. Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking. Mother nods in practice synchronization. A lot of soul searching, she adds, her hand drifting to her throat in her characteristic gesture of emotional emphasis. We realize there have been misunderstandings, Father continues carefully. Miscommunications, Mother amends softly. Mistakes, Father concedes with visible effort. They present a united front of reconciliation, offering apologies that never quite admit specific wrongs, followed quickly by suggestions about moving forward as a family and pooling our resources under their guidance. Your grandmother clearly saw potential in you that we overlooked, Father admits with a forced smile. But now we have an opportunity to combine your inheritance with our experience, to truly build a family legacy together. The wall clock ticks loudly in the silence after their proposal. And what role do you envision for me in this family legacy? I ask, genuinely curious how they've rewritten the narrative in their minds. Junior partner, of course, Father replies without hesitation. You'd have input on major decisions with guidance from those with more experience. By which he means himself. You'd have a seat at the table, Mother adds, as if this is a generous concession rather than my rightful place. Vanessa finally speaks from her position by the window. We're still family, she says, attempting sincerity. Families stick together, especially in business. I study each of their faces, seeing the calculations behind their performative reconciliation. They've realized they cannot fight me directly, so instead they'll try to assimilate my success into their control. I'll consider your proposal, I say simply, rising from my chair. Is there anything else? They exchange surprised glances. Clearly, they expected either immediate capitulation or emotional confrontation, not calm consideration. Just think about what family really means, Ellie, Mother says, reaching for my hand. Blood is thicker than water. I remember how thin that blood seemed when they left me at the airport. Twice. Over breakfast the next morning, Father spreads investment brochures across the table, coffee steam rising between us. He's dressed in his best suit, the power outfit he reserves for important meetings. I was up half the night reviewing these opportunities, he announces, eyes gleaming with the same excitement that preceded his multiple bankruptcies in my previous life. With your inheritance capital and my connections, we could triple the returns within 18 months. I scan the glossy materials without touching them, the same questionable schemes he pursued before. Commercial real estate in declining areas, franchise opportunities with failing brands, energy sector investments that ignore the coming renewable revolution I know will reshape markets within 5 years. We could triple your inheritance, he promises, sliding what appears to be projected earnings across the table. Mother chimes in from where she's pretending to arrange flowers nearby. Think of what we could accomplish as a united front. The Ellis name could really mean something in this city. It already does, I think, but don't say. Just not the way you imagine. Outside, gardeners I've hired prune roses beneath the window, their shears snipping rhythmically. The property already looks better under new management, the neglected landscaping coming back to life with proper care. Vanessa surprisingly offers reconciliation over her second cup of coffee. I've been thinking, she says, stirring in her third sugar packet. We should start fresh, maybe a sister's trip. The Maldives would be amazing this time of year. My treat naturally goes unspoken, but clearly implied. I listen attentively, noting how they frame their self-interest as concern for me, how their apologies contain justifications. Each proposal places them in control of my resources while offering me token participation in decisions. When they finish, expecting my eager agreement, as always before, I simply butter my toast and reply, no. The simple word hangs in the air between us, unfamiliar and devastating. Sorry, Father blinks rapidly as if he must have misheard. No, I repeat clearly, that won't be possible. But we're offering you, he begins. Nothing I want or need, I finish for him. Mother's face crumples in calculated distress. After everything we've done for you. Yes, I agree calmly. After everything. The silence that follows is profound, broken only by the rhythmic snipping of garden shears outside. Evening finds us in the living room, rain pattering against windows, as my family makes their final stand. I've spent the day avoiding them, working remotely from my bedroom while they've clearly been planning this confrontation. Father paces across the Persian rug I purchased after Grandma's funeral, intermittently stopping to emphasize points about blood being thicker than water and the importance of forgiveness. Families disagree, they make mistakes, he insists, but in the end, they come together. Mother sits with perfect posture on the sofa, nodding at appropriate intervals. We're not perfect, Ellie, she adds, voice trembling slightly. But we love you. Love. Such a convenient emotion when they need something from me. Remember how we supported your early interest in mathematics? Mother continues, conveniently forgetting how they refused to pay for the advanced summer program I qualified for because Vanessa's drama camp was already so expensive. Vanessa, desperate now, fluctuates between tearful pleas and veiled threats. We grew up together, she reminds me, as if I could forget the shared childhood where she was protagonist and I was barely supporting cast. I know you, Ellie, better than anyone. The threat is subtle but clear. She knows my embarrassing moments, my vulnerabilities, the insecurities they carefully cultivated in me over years of systematic undermining. The scent of Mother's stress baking wafts from the kitchen, my kitchen, as they deliver their ultimatum. Either I reconsider my selfish position, or they'll contest the will, drag my name through public court proceedings, and ensure painful family division. You don't want this to get ugly, Father warns, his tone making it clear this is no longer a negotiation but a threat. The press would have a field day with a family feud like ours. It would damage the company reputation before you've even properly begun. Lightning briefly illuminates their determined faces as they await my capitulation. Instead, I calmly slide a folder across the coffee table. Before you make decisions you can't reverse, you should review these documents. Father opens the folder with confidence that quickly drains from his face. Inside are copies proving their systematic financial abuse of both me and Grandma, forged signatures, fraudulent transfers, tax documents with deliberate misrepresentations. Where did you get these? He whispers, complexion ashen. Grandma kept better records than you realized, I reply. And she hired very thorough forensic accountants before updating her will. The documents outline the legal consequences they now face regardless of my decisions. Consequences I've been quietly postponing while observing their reactions to our changed circumstances. You would send your own family to prison? Mother asks, voice barely audible. I haven't turned these over to authorities, I clarify. Yet. Mother begins to weep softly, genuine tears this time. What do you want from us? Father finally asks, defeated. Distance, I answer simply, and acceptance that things have changed permanently. Moving day arrives with morning fog clinging to the lawn. Professional movers efficiently load my family's belongings into trucks. Not their belongings anymore, as they've been given 30 days to vacate what is legally my property. The grandfather clock in the foyer chimes dolefully as Mother makes a final appeal, voice cracking with genuine emotion for perhaps the first time. She stands in the entrance hallway, watching as workers carry out furniture that has defined her social identity for decades. Where will we go? She asks, gesture encompassing Father, consulting with his lawyer by the hydrangeas, and Vanessa sitting defiantly on her packed suitcases. For the first time since my rebirth, I feel a flicker of sympathy. In my previous life, Mother was as much a victim of Father's financial mismanagement as I was, though she participated willingly in maintaining appearances at all costs. I've arranged 3 months of housing for you, I explained gently. Separately. Separately, she repeats, uncomprehending. An apartment for you and Father, a studio for Vanessa near the university. The arrangements had been simple enough with my resources. Time for each of you to reconsider your priorities. Father approaches with practiced contrition, hand extended for a final handshake. He's abandoned threats for one last attempt at manipulation. Ellie, he says quietly, is there anything I can say to change your mind? Anything at all? The morning sunlight breaks through clouds, warming my face as I consider his question with genuine reflection. Is there anything he could say? Any magic words that would erase years of neglect, manipulation, and outright theft? No, I answer simply, making no move to accept his outstretched hand. His arm drops slowly to his side. For just a moment, I glimpse real regret in his eyes. Not for his actions, but for the consequences he now faces. Their car doors slam with finality as they leave. separate cars heading to separate futures without my financial support. I watch from the front steps as three vehicles pull away. Father's sedan turns left toward the city, while Mother's compact car turns right toward the suburbs. Vanessa's borrowed hatchback follows neither, charting her own course for perhaps the first time. In my previous life, our family fractured after my death. Father's financial crimes finally catching up to him. Mother retreating to a smaller life with distant relatives. Vanessa struggling without the support system that had always prioritized her. This time, they at least have the small safety net I've provided. Not forgiveness, but perhaps a chance for redemption they never offered me. As the last car disappears from view, I turn back to the empty house, my house now, and begin planning the renovations that will transform it from a shrine to appearances into a home that reflects who I've become. I stand on the balcony of my penthouse, morning light gilding the city skyline. Coffee steam rises from my mug as I review international market reports on my tablet. The air carries a hint of autumn crispness, the city below awakening to another day of possibilities. My assistant's voice comes through the intercom. Your 9 a.m. with the Educational Foundation Committee is confirmed, and Mrs. Winters would like to move your lunch to 1 p.m. if that works with your schedule. That's fine, I confirm, making a notation in my calendar. Today's schedule feels pleasantly meaningful, a meeting with the Educational Foundation I've established with a portion of Grandma's inheritance, followed by lunch with her former business partner who's become a mentor and friend. The foundation will award its first round of scholarships next month, providing opportunities for students who, like me in my first life, have potential but lack family support. The doorbell chimes, a delivery of fresh flowers from my home office. White lilies, Grandma's favorite, mixed with vibrant wildflowers that remind me of the garden at her estate, now preserved as part of a nature trust in her name. I've created a life unimaginable in my previous existence, built on the foreknowledge my rebirth provided and the quiet strength I developed. The path hasn't been easy, establishing independence never is, but it has been worthwhile. My phone occasionally shows messages from family. Mother's careful pleasantries about her new part-time job at a small gallery. Father's thinly veiled investment opportunities disguised as casual check-ins. Vanessa's alternating hostility and reconciliation attempts as she adjusts to earning her own way. I respond cordially but briefly, maintaining boundaries that would have seemed impossible before. Mother seems genuinely happier in her simpler life, finding purpose in work she actually enjoys rather than social climbing. Father struggles more, his identity so tied to financial success that its absence has left him adrift. Vanessa fluctuates between resentment and personal growth, occasionally showing glimpses of the person she might become without constant preferential treatment. The morning breeze carries the scent of possibility as I prepare for another day of the life I've consciously built rather than the one they tried to force me into. Sometimes I wonder about the cosmic mechanics that allowed my rebirth, that gave me this second chance. Was it random, purposeful, a glitch in the universe? I may never know, but I remain grateful for the opportunity to rewrite not just my story, but the stories of others through the Foundation's work. In my previous life, I died wondering if I'd ever mattered to anyone. In this one, I know with certainty that I do. JFK International teams with travelers as I bypass the main terminal, heading directly to the private aviation section. The contrast to that fateful day isn't lost on me. Abandoned then, empowered now. James greets me at the entrance to the executive lounge, professional as always, but with the warmth that comes from 2 years of working together. Good afternoon, Miss Ellis. The jet is fueled and ready. Weather looks clear all the way to Singapore. Thank you, James. Any messages? Just one from the board confirming tomorrow's meeting has been moved to the Raffles Hotel at your suggestion. The leather sofa is comfortable as I review documents while waiting, occasionally glancing at travelers rushing through the main concourse visible through glass walls. The private lounge is deliberately positioned to offer this view, a reminder of privilege that I try never to take for granted. A familiar group catches my eye, my family, hurrying with overloaded luggage carts, apparently late for their flight. I watch dispassionately as they argue among themselves at the economy check-in counter, gesturing frantically at their tickets. Father looks noticeably older, his confident posture diminished by financial reality. Mother appears thinner, but somehow more authentic without her designer armor. Vanessa gestures animatedly at the airline staff, her former entitlement meeting the immovable wall of commercial flight protocols. The scent of expensive coffee fills my senses as the lounge attendant refills my cup. My phone buzzes with a desperate text from Vanessa. Our tickets were canceled. Can you help? I smile slightly, remembering how in my previous life I frantically emptied my savings to buy last-minute tickets when they left me behind. Today, I simply put my phone away and gather my belongings as James announces my plane is ready. As I walk across the tarmac to the waiting jet, I feel a moment of perfect clarity. The universe gave me a second chance not for revenge, but for justice, including the justice of allowing natural consequences to unfold for those who never considered the consequences of their actions toward me. Months later, waves crash rhythmically against white sand as I walk barefoot along a private beach in Bali. The setting sun paints the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink, palm trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. This solo sabbatical was a gift to myself after finalizing the merger that doubled my company's value. For 2 weeks, I've traded board meetings for meditation, financial projections for sunset yoga, and corporate strategy for simple existence in the present moment. My villa's lights twinkle in the distance as darkness begins to fall. The beachfront property, once a distant dream, now serves as both retreat and reminder of how far I've come. During my stay, I've received news that father's latest venture has failed, mother's social standing has diminished without access to family money, and Vanessa has finally taken a retail job to support herself. Through my discreet monitoring, I know they struggle, but survive. Father's financial acumen finally directed toward living within actual means. Mother finding community in her new neighborhood. Vanessa slowly developing self-reliance. The knowledge brings no joy, only peaceful closure. I never wanted their destruction, only my liberation. I stopped to pick up a perfect shell, cool and smooth against my palm. In my previous life, I never took vacations, never prioritized my peace, always placing their needs above mine until my breakdown. That life ended in a hospital room, lonely and sedated, my family absent even in my final moments. The salty air fills my lungs as I breathe deeply, thankful for second chances and lessons learned. The waves continue their eternal rhythm, reminding me that time flows whether we use it wisely or waste it. A message appears on my phone. The Educational Scholarship Foundation I established in Grandma's name has selected its first 20 recipients. Students who, like me in another life, needed someone to believe in their potential and invest in their future rather than exploit it. I smile at the notification, then silence my phone and return it to my pocket. The foundation will thrive without my constant attention, just as I now thrive without constantly seeking my family's approval. As darkness falls completely, I turn toward my villa, walking away from the ocean but carrying its lesson with me that even the strongest forces can change direction when necessary, erasing old patterns to create something new and beautiful in their place. Like me, twice born but finally truly living.